So yeah, for everybody who is listening now to this talk, I want just to clarify that I myself have struggled very long with RJ. How very long, I don't know, compared to others, but it was like 1.5 or 2 years that were really, really badly. And it got to a point where I had to go to like a mental ward. I think that's what it's called. Also, excuse, I'm English is not my main language, so sometimes there will be some words that will be more difficult for me to
I can help clear that up for you if you want.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
mental ward, right? That's a word, right?
Yeah, so I guess in English, that makes sense, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and only then when I really hit like rock bottom, I got the full motivation. Somehow something like was unlocked within me that I know, okay, now if I don't do anything now, that just will get like, yeah, I mean, it could end really badly, right? And so I started with meditation because for me, medication was no real option. Already then I had like the feeling I don't want to be dependent on constant medication. Heard about side effects and stories from other people. So yeah, I got heavily into meditation and really made it a daily exercise for myself. And yeah, since then things started to change greatly for me. I became in general really interested about the RJ recovery. And then when I got to a point where I felt like really stable with myself, with my condition, I felt, wow, okay, this is something that can actually be treated, and there is hope, there is a positive perspective on this. And I thought, okay, I want to share it, right? I want to start counseling in this field and helping people. And yeah, and so I met you, right?
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, we met on the Facebook group.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of it. Was it Dialogue Group for Retroactive Jealousy? I think it's called on Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a good group for sufferers, but also has its pros and cons. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yes, I agree. Yes. So I think I made like a post about that I would help people and people can reach out anytime. And you are one of a few people that actually reached out.
Yeah.
And and then we had a conversation, like we had a talk. And yeah, so I gave you some tools like meditation, right? Meditation, I gave you like four points. 4 main points, I think, that helped myself and also I've proven to help also other people. And so I gave you these 4 points, and I think you are really one of these people who really put the practice in. You realized,
for sure.
Wow, okay, this is important now. I don't want to wait any longer, right? This is an important part now
I've still
to get
got
better.
I've actually got the sheet of notes that I made from our session right next to me.
That's great, yeah.
Which we should, I'll read some stuff from it in a minute because it's really good information actually.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it would be nice to hear for people just how did you feel after this talk, or what did you take from main takeaways from it, and your development since then. So if you can share something about that.
So I was very similar to you actually. With I suffer. Well, I've been suffering from it all my life, but I never really knew what it was up until around maybe 9 months ago. I always had these horrible the horrible symptoms of RJ like since I was kind of in my first relationship. So when I was about 15, 14, that's when I noticed it. So I guess my family's always had a history of OCD. So I definitely there's something to do with genetics. I think they're involved to a degree, or how it's kind of passed on to people. But yeah, so I never really noticed what it was up until around 9 months ago, and obviously I ended up finding out about some things, and everyone knows how it goes. and it just it got worse and worse and worse up until around December last year. I kind of finally reached out for help from people that were close to me, and I ended up getting counselling, so CBT sessions, which I never really found particularly helpful. It was great to talk to people, but it never really got rid of the nasty symptoms. So I carried on in this kind of bad state up until maybe 3 months ago. Maybe was that when I talked to you? I think
probably, yeah, around 3 months.
So just before I think I talked to Sam, I just really hit my own personal rock bottom, where I got so desperate to the point where I was kind of open to trying anything. So I ended up going on Zoloft, and I tried Zoloft, but it had a really bad effect on me. I ended up having almost like a mental breakdown and I was on a course and I had to come home because I was really unwell. It was really nasty. So that's similar to you. I had that sort of rock bottom moment, I think.
Yes.
Where, I realized that, I can't, I need to do something, otherwise this is really going to take over my life. So that's when I'd seen your comments on the group and I was like, you know what, I am perfectly ready to try anything. So I had a session with you, and it's completely changed my life. Okay,
it's nice to hear.
I'm, truly, not any, it's some people, you don't know if they're being serious, like when they're trying to advertise books and stuff, selling books. But I think I'm being truthful that it has changed my life. And, Sam gives away these sessions for free, doesn't ask for money. I mean, you can donate to him if you want, but as he does it for free. So it's not like I'm trying to advertise that, I'm just telling the truth. So, so since I had that session, I've basically been in bliss, really. It feels like that, It took me maybe around 2 or 3 weeks to really kind of get the 4 points into like a habit and to get a good solid practice. But since then, it's been great. I mean, obviously, recovery takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. So occasionally I have a wobble, but I've pinpointed what are the reasons for those wobbles, which I'm sure we can talk about that soon, which I think is an important thing to do as well, is, pinpoint what causes you to have a wobble, since the past 3 months have been amazing, absolutely amazing. I feel like a new person, and people have noticed it as well. My friends have noticed it, that, I got really thin because I wasn't eating, because I felt so mentally unwell, but I've started to gain weight again, which is really nice. Kind of feel back to normal, and so I mean, should we have talk about what kind of stuff you talked to me about in the session?
I think it okay, I mean, of course we cannot it would take very long to go into every detail, but
yes, of course.
Maybe for you personally, what helped you the most? You can decide what kind of things you would like people to really know.
Yeah. So personally, I think definitely you have to think about this personally. Like different people react to different things. I know people that really struggled with meditation. Some reason it didn't really seem to, like, for instance, my girlfriend, she really struggles to meditate because she's got a very active mind. But I also say to her, that's the reason you should be meditating. But
yes,
I think it comes to a certain point in your life where you get open up to these things, and it's when you hit that rock bottom that you become open to these things. So for me, the biggest thing I think that I can kind of, there's the two main things really. So the meditation, I now do it every day, between 15 minutes to half an hour. So I do about 15 minutes in the morning, normally using Headspace. That app is absolutely fantastic. I just get it. It just works, and I've noticed. I think an important thing to realize is that you shouldn't look at RJ as this really horrible, depressing thing that's taking over your life. I think you should look at it as a challenge for your life, and once you get better, once you take control, you'll be a much stronger person. So, for instance, meditation, it's not only helped me in terms of RJ, it makes you more mindful, and the nasty thoughts tend to add less weight. When I say weight, less meaning to these nasty thoughts, and therefore they come up less. The less you think about them, the less they come up. And it's also made me less anxious generally in life. Like, for instance, in social situations, and before I'm a musician, so I play live a lot. And I noticed before I started meditating, I was absolutely shitting myself before I play gigs. But now, I just stroll up on stage and it's fine, which I think is a really interesting point. And I think the second thing is the reading. That's definitely done a lot of good for me.
So that point, the point that I called like soul food, or like feeding positive stuff to your mind, right?
Yes, for sure. The biggest thing is definitely Eckhart Tolle. His books are absolutely life changing, and I'm not just saying that. Like, they are amazing. Completely will change your perspective on everything, and I think genuinely they do make you happier. They really do make you think. Well, not think, but kind of the way you perceive changes in a positive way.
True.
So I'd say that those are the two main things that have helped me get to the point where I am today.
Yes, it's very important, really interesting to me that I find myself also in this story of your recovery, because I felt exactly the same or very similar changes happening within myself. I also had many moments in social interactions where I felt uneasy, or agitated, and I always approached, for example, gatherings of people and group discussions, always approach them with this thinking mind and like planning out what I'm going to say. And if this person says that, I have to say that. And if I say that, many people will like what I say. And so you're living in your head, like in clouds, so to say, having your head in the clouds and thinking about what you're going to say. And it makes you more nervous, right? And with meditation, you kind of can ease into the situation, and if I would describe it, I would say you feel the situation instead of constantly thinking about it, right?
Oh, definitely.
I think I would describe it like that.
You're not stuck in that kind of automatic thinking mode. And then what's great is that you also notice when you go into that automatic thinking mode, where you're constantly like, as you said, you've got to think about how you approach certain situations, and it's really benefiting in that way.
And I think also that you describe your changes so similar to what I experienced, it goes to show that the basic human condition is really similar between human beings, and because we also get taught from society, sometimes also from parents, like, there's nobody like you, you are so special, you are, and of course the ego likes to hear that, right? I'm so special, and the other people are so different from me, and but on the other hand, actually, if you go beyond like skin color, the structure of the face, there is a certain human condition in essence that I think we all share more or less, right?
Yes.
And it also shows like everyone wants to experience peace. Everyone likes to have a calm moment or have a calm mind inside them, right? So that's why so many people, if they really devote themselves or being dedicated with meditation, they will all really like the results and find it really a precious activity. That's at least what I heard from many people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say actually that we're talking about things that, you know, when you talk about the ego and things like that, we're talking about things that Eckhart Tolle talks about in his books. So obviously,
Yes,
from a
yes.
person who hasn't really maybe not done that much reading around Eckhart Tolle or isn't familiar particularly with all that kind of more verging on spiritual philosophy almost. It might sound a bit weird what we're saying, but it makes sense once you read the books. And I mean, would you like to explain what you mean by kind of the ego? And
Yes,
yeah,
sure, yeah. I think the way I view it is, for me, it is like a mechanism that is working inside you, and it really likes to feed from kind of these boosts, what you also call ego boosts, and feeling very special, feeling more important than other people, and also likes to compare and yeah, I have more money than this, and
yeah, I'm better
but
than
it
this
can also
person, or
exactly, yes. And I don't think you should really see it as an enemy, like, because then you make your inner world your own enemy, and that's a struggle, right?
Yes.
That's also only brings more pain. I think you should have understanding that you have this mechanism working inside you. Is somehow it can also help for your survival, right? I just think it has fallen out of balance. It's like become like a wild beast in your head, right? It's not in balance anymore.
Yes.
Something like that.
So relating this back to RJ, you know, all this stuff about the ego and everything being out of balance. Yeah. So how do we relate this to this mental, or you know, condition, this mental illness almost?
Yeah. Would you like me to say my view on that, or do you have already
Yeah,
an
go
idea?
for it. Yeah. So like,
Okay. Okay. So I think it is just, for me, in my eyes, it is the underlying problem to all of this is, if I would give a word or a description to what you have gone through in your recovery and I went through in my recovery, if I would give a description to that, it is restoring the balance, restoring the balance
Yes.
again that has been lost in your upbringing, in your living in this, you can actually say crazy world, right?
yeah,
It's not really a natural way of living for human beings anymore. If you look outside, like everyone's looking in their screens, having ear pods in their ears. The mind never gets a moment to cool off, so to say, but instead it gets fueled more and more and fueled this addiction almost to fuel your mind and
it's
never let
it
it
never
rest.
stops. Yeah, it's constantly working.
Yes. And then people, the great problem, I think, is when people try to think, the problem is outside of me, right? The problem is outside of me. If only this circumstance would be different,
Yes.
then I would be a
Yes.
totally peaceful person, right? I would
think
be at ease.
That's a really good point, actually, is about when you kind of almost, because RJ isn't exactly a thing that a doctor will tell you you've got. It's something that you almost self-diagnose, and I feel like a lot of people, when they realize that they have retroactive jealousy, is they'll take on the persona. You know, they'll take on the idea that they are this illness, and they immediately start self-pitying. You know,
Yeah.
and that's a big issue, because it's when you think you are the illness, you become completely overtaken by it, and it becomes worse. You know, so that's an important thing you need to think about, is not busking in the feelings. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a thing that we both see quite a lot on the Facebook group. Is
Yes.
that people are kind of so they are horrible. You know, don't get me wrong. The symptoms are horrendous, right? But people are so, you know, they why is this happening to me kind of attitude, which you were just saying, yeah.
Yeah. I have also talked about that with a guy that also became very active in the group, this guy called Atticus, right?
Yes, he's the one with the PDF, right? Is that the guy who posted the...
Exactly. Yes. And he's a very good influence also in this group, I feel.
Yes, for sure.
And the way he described it to me is that people, I don't know if you have noticed, but people who suffer from RJ, right? They're mostly what you would call very intelligent people. So
emotionally intelligent as well. Another thing that, you know, I'd say very in touch with emotions and empathy.
Yeah, and also I think here it is important to see intelligent just as a word, right? A word that we have made up to describe. Yeah, what does it actually describe, right? Intelligence. And I feel one thing that they have in common, their intelligence, is due to the fact that they are very active mentally. They are really, really active. Like their thought processes in their head happen really fast and really frequently, right?
Yes.
So those are really thinkers, the thinker type. And this thinker type is viewed in our modern society as something really, really positive, right? Yeah, you have to use your brain, you have to think constantly, and the solution to every problem is thinking till you come to a solution, right? And I would challenge this thought a little bit. I don't think it's always good to be constantly, to give your thought so much power and to view every thought that pops in your head. I think view every thought as the truth.
Yeah,
right?
It's an important thing that I would say as well is what I say to people is that 90% of your thinking isn't actually particularly needed. Like you can work out a lot of things in about 10% of how much you actually think. You just tend to completely overthink stuff that doesn't need to be thought about. And I think another important thing to realize is that, you know, when you're constantly connected to these thoughts, as you say, as you describe someone who's intelligent, thinks a lot. When you're so in touch with these thoughts, you become them, right? And then you have no space between your thoughts and, you know, your kind of awareness of the thoughts. And that's where kind of meditation comes in providing that space between your awareness of the thoughts and the thoughts themselves. And that we will relate that to RJ in a minute, I'm sure. But yeah, sorry, I was just something that I thought as you were talking. Carry on.
And I think the dilemma of being this thinker type, this what society calls really intelligent person, the dilemma is, on one hand side, you can be really successful in this society because all the jobs, you know, all jobs that you can make good careers in and earn much, they are based on people who constantly think, right? And this is what society wants, also on a financial level, right? On business level. But then also for your personal life, what does that mean, right? If you are the more active of a thinker you are, I think, more active as a thinker you are, I feel, that means that the more you create like a secondary reality to this one, right? Sometimes it can almost feel as a layer that goes over the actual reality.
Yes.
A layer based on your thoughts, and you only uphold this layer and make it constant if you keep on thinking constantly, right? And then watch what happens in meditation when you have meditated for quite a long time. Watch what happens when this diminishes, right? When there is a silence and you see, wow, I don't always need to be dependent on my thoughts. I also survive if I stop thinking for a moment.
Yes.
And I'm still in touch with reality. Actually, and this is the point, actually, I'm even more in touch now with reality. I feel I see things even more clearly now, even though society has taught me that only by thinking will I be able to grasp reality. I think that's a really important point.
Yes, for sure, definitely. And kind of, relating this to RJ is what, is the all the stuff that RJ is kind of based on it is in your thoughts, right? And the way that me and Sam think about how, well, I'm talking for you right now, but the way we think about kind of recovery from this is giving, making space between your thoughts and your awareness of the thoughts. And it's a good thing to know that you're not just your thoughts. You are you can be in an awareness of your thoughts, and it's to people who are really in the nasty, the midst of so when you're, in the fog, I'd say, when you're really deep in RJ, where you're on a really bad spell and, it feels like you can't get out and you're constantly the way I described it to my therapist was like, it's like a snowball, right? For me, especially, it was like, I'd have a week where I'd be sort of okay. Then I'd have another week where I'd get triggered by something and I'd suddenly snowball, right? It's your constant, kind of, identification with thought. As soon as you get triggered, you are identified with the thought and it just spirals and it spirals and it spirals until you're into this really horrible, sticky situation. It's like the way also I described it is like when you're walking on a day that it's been raining and you're walking down a grass path and you see that like lots of people have treaded this path, you get a really muddy and yucky, squelchy, wet path, right? And that's kind of the path of your thought when you're in the midst of RJ, right? You constantly keep treading the same path and it gets stuck and there's no room for the grass to regrow, right? I feel, what you need to do, is to create another path where you aren't treading in the mud all the time, right? Where you move into a separate bit of the grass, okay?
And, yes, it's a good image, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what, if possible, if I'd like to talk about right now is what kind of our advice is for people who are really stuck in, because I've had a couple of people talk to me actually who have been right in the middle of a really nasty episode of RJ, and I'm sure in future podcasts we can go into this more deeply, and I think that's the plan, is we'll take a podcast to talk about meditation and all these different ways you can start recovering. But briefly, let's talk about what someone can start doing today to what they can start practicing.
Yeah, I think first there really needs to be a realization that I don't want to carry on any longer like this, right?
Yes.
And what can be really frustrating with people when you work with people who have RJ is that you try to give them the tools and you see that they are sabotaging their life, right? And you also know from yourself that you have been there, and
Yes.
you kind of wish that they wouldn't need to hit rock bottom first, right? You already see where they are going, right?
Yeah,
and then you say,
for sure.
please stop now and implement these tools. But one client told me a good example comparison, somebody who is an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
You often see friends give him advice. Yeah, come on, stop drinking. That's not good for you, right? And in a way, he totally knows that it's not good for him. But he will be like, yeah, anyway, probably I will stop tomorrow, And he keeps drinking, right? And so he often these people have to really be in the worst place sometimes.
You have to have a self-realization.
Yeah,
that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
I was talking, as you said, I was talking to a friend recently as well who hasn't suffered from RJ, but has had a really tough time with depression recently. Really like suicidal depression episodes, and I was talking to them, and they still haven't seemed. It's weird. It's when people really hit their most desperate time do they kind of open up to this approach. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. Like she just didn't agree with anything I was saying, about all this stuff about meditation and stuff. She was like, no, I enjoy thinking. Thinking's good for me. And I felt really bad because, she's going to go through a lot, many more of these nasty phases until she kind of understands the process of what we're talking about, I think.
Yeah. And she says like, it's somehow it feels good, and thinking is good. And the client I talked to yesterday told me, or I think we kind of got to this image of seeing that RJ, it can be viewed as a huge puzzle that you have made for yourself, right? You laid out like a huge puzzle. And by thinking, it feels like I'm keeping solving it, right?
Yes.
I keep solving the puzzle, and then he told me, and who doesn't like a good puzzle, right? So even though it sounds horrific when you need to go through this pain, but there is kind of a layer within you or in your thought workings, that kind of enjoys nagging or working on this puzzle, right?
There's something that constantly brings you back to wanting to think about these. For me especially, I noticed that especially with the nasty mental images and movies, there's something in me that wants to see that. There's a pull, there's an attraction to seeing and thinking these nasty things. That's a really interesting.
Definitely a pull. Yeah, pull.
Yes.
The same pull that you sometimes also feel, there's also something about restoring the balance, is notice yourself when you are in a moment where you're not doing anything, where you're not at work, where you don't have to do anything immediately. Then you will feel one of the following two pulls you will feel. Either you feel the pull to go into your thought world, right?
Yeah.
Go into kind of images, thought, movies, right? Or you will feel the pull to go to your phone. It will always be one of these two pulls, mainly.
Yes.
Right? So you either live in the digital world or in the clouds with your head, right? In the thoughts. When is actually the time where you just settle down and let yourself fall into the present, into reality, and let the mind cool off? This is never the case somehow, right? It's so sick. Yeah. And now also you asked about what can we tell people right now so that they can get out of this or can make it better for the moment. And I really think they should ask themselves, become really aware about what they want, really, right?
Yes.
They can ask themselves, do I really want to be now the hundredth person that needs to hit rock bottom before I do anything? Do I want to be this person, right? And only if you make it as clear as possible in your head, if you really have to get clear in your head, what do I want? Do I want to let it go longer till the patterns go deeper and deeper, or do I want to take action now?
That's a brilliant
it's only
point.
when you it's only when you ask yourself this question, take a moment to ask yourself this question, that you can really make a conscious decision. Because otherwise you're just lost in distractions all day long and no change will happen, I feel.
Yes, so the first kind of the thing that you need to sort out is, before getting yourself in the right mindset to be open to these new ways of thinking, to be open to meditation, to be open to reading these books and setting yourself up for a new way of thinking, essentially. Yeah. Is that essentially what you're saying, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I think, if we should maybe start to wrap off close off the podcast here, because, we're almost hitting 40 minutes.
It always happens fast.
Yes. But yeah, I think that's a good thing for people to think about for the moment, is to really suss out what they want. And maybe we should briefly touch on what our plan is for future podcasts and what we're kind of thinking about. So I'm sure some of you will be in the group who are, in the Facebook group, who are listening to this right now. And we've posted in there asking, what do people want? Some people have said they'd like to come on and talk about their experience. We'd be open to having people to come on or email something into us or Facebook message us about some stuff that, their story or what they'd like to talk about. I think we should also in future podcasts, we'll talk about, the different parts of what we've used to recover, and also maybe different approaches, such as Atticus's kind of way of doing it. His kind of ERP based approach of stuff. I don't know if you want to say anything before we end, or.
I think there are definitely plans for the future podcast, and also, like you just said, George, they can anytime send also stuff that they want to have discussed in the podcast, right? So topics, we're totally open to that. I want to say something for people who are not already in this Facebook group.
Oh yes.
And so on one hand side, the Facebook group is great for, like, you feel, wow, that's something that you always read in these posts. I thought I was alone. Now I'm with all of you. But I feel this is the double-edged sword, right? Because then often people say, like, I thought I was crazy, but now I know that so many people feel like this, right? Now, imagine, for example, imagine you have an illness, and an illness that is not really known. So you have an illness. And then you feel like, okay, how bad, like you think in your head, how bad is this illness? Is it really bad? Is it, can I get over this? You try to evaluate, right, in your head, right?
Yes.
And then you come across a group full of people who tell you, or many people who tell you, yeah, this RJ, this monster, this monster in you now you're stuck with this demon, and then your relationship to this illness or to this challenge that you're having at the moment completely changes, right? You're like, oh, this shit is real, oh, I'm really in deep shit now, you know what I mean?
And sure.
This belief alone, and reading about people every day who have a bad time at the moment, right? And it's understandable that they voice their pain. It's really understandable. But if you feed this yourself on a daily basis, I'm not sure of how good this is for your recovery. To be
sure,
honest.
it's like everyone pitting each other, isn't it? Everyone kind of. We see quite a few posts where it's people like, I'm having a really bad day. That's fine. That's fair enough. You can post that and that's perfectly fine. But you see other people like, just don't think about it. Try to, exercise or whatever. It's all helpful, but it doesn't fix anything. If anything, it's counterintuitive because, if you're scrolling through Facebook and you're not currently thinking about RJ and you see a post about RJ, you're going to start thinking about your RJ, So in a way, it's nice to see other people. It's nice to know that you aren't alone, but it's also, it can be, as you said, it can be can cause more problems that it fixes. But you yourself sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, pitting each other and therefore also reinforcing this belief, right? If somebody's saying, I'm feeling bad with this, and then you're answering like, yeah, I would, if I was in your place, or I would totally feel, I would feel this
like,
too.
I feel bad
That's
too,
like
you know.
reinforcing this belief that I'm totally fucked up now. And
Yeah.
I
For
know
sure.
that these people don't want anything negative, right? They don't want to harm other people. They just want to show, yeah, I understand you, you know? It's understandable. It's actually comes from a good motive, actually, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I just want to raise a little bit of awareness how that can affect other people. And because I remember really vividly one night where I felt like, yeah, I'm getting better with my recovery, right? And for some reason, it's still this pull to always go on the internet and read up stories and read this and that.
Yeah,
For
for
some
sure.
reason, I went on the internet that night and started to read some stuff. I don't know what I was hoping to find, you know. Just probably wanted to get better and better and feel good, find good information or whatever. But then I came like across a post of somebody asking like for help,
Yeah.
and then somebody in their pain told them, "Yeah, sorry, this will never get better. You will be stuck with this. You just have to accept it."
I've seen stuff like that as well.
Something
on the
like that,
internet.
you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And my mind was so fragile at this moment, you know. There, I was still in my recovery, right?
Yes.
That I felt a huge setback when I remember the moment I read that comment, my body was like shivering, you know, and like I had to go like to the bathroom, or like I felt I didn't know where to go. I felt like so uneasy in myself,
Hopeless.
you know.
Almost.
Yeah,
you know.
hopeless.
That's the horrible
I felt,
feeling.
Yeah,
That was the thing that mostly stuck out for me, was, you know, that feeling, that really deep feeling of hopelessness, that it will never get better. But
yeah, it was like horror feeling coming over.
but it can
myself,
get
yeah.
better.
Yeah,
You know? It really, honestly, it really can.
totally.
I feel like I, you know, if I was going to put a percentage on it, I'm like 90% better, you know, than how I was before, and I've only been kind of practicing this stuff for maybe, you know, 2 or 3 months.
That's
So-
really impressive, because for me it took like 5 or maybe 6 months, you know.
Yeah, well, everyone's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In certain ways, yeah. And also, I think you were also now in a good. You had a good chance also, right? Because I also wished that I would have had somebody who just straight away like gave me the most important tools, right?
Yes.
Because in my place, I was just like searching the internet. I didn't want to pay like for hundreds of dollars for this course of Zachary Stockel, you know.
Yes.
I just felt, or talking to somebody who charges $5 every minute or $3 every minute. You know what I mean. I felt pushed away from these kind of offers, you know.
Yeah,
It was
but by all
off-putting.
means, people can try everything, and that's not a
Yeah.
problem. But
Yeah.
from our experiences, these things tend to not work. You can't reason with OCD, and that's what Zachary's course is based off, is trying to reason. You know, and it's impossible to do that. You can't do that. It doesn't work. You know.
Did you try the course? Because I didn't try it.
I haven't bought it, but I've read a lot of his articles. When I was, you know, before, when I was really unwell, when I was desperate. Yeah. I think also
Yeah, I
another
don't-
thing.
yeah.
I was just going to say, actually, we were talking about the Facebook group. You have just set up a new Facebook group. What's it called?
Change for the better. It's
Yes.
called, yeah.
Do you want to say something quickly about that? Because I know that it's meant to be, you know, like a positive. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. You know what we will do. We can we talk now a little bit about that, and I mean we can split like this recording in two. You know.
Yes. Yeah.
So
for
you
sure.
can make like 2 parts, so we don't like give the people like here 1 hour, you know, talking, you know.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
we can just split the video, you know. But now we're already in the flow, and so I think it would be artificial now to just cut it off and tomorrow start from this point, you know.
Yeah.
So why not discussing it now? Okay, so yeah, I did a new group, I made a new group, Change for the Better on Facebook. And the whole group is based on spreading positive information, spreading the positive perspective on this, showing people there is a perspective, there is a way, right, to deal with this, and not having in between always negativity, or pain, or saying, yeah, so painful at the moment. I know these things have a place, but I don't want them to be in this group. I want this
Yes.
group to be only for people who say, I just want the positivity, right? I want only the things that help me recover, because I really care about what I feed my mind in
Yes.
these difficult times, right? Yeah, that's what it's all about, actually, this group. Yeah.
It's growing as well, isn't it? Like I think
Yeah.
the main RJ group has about almost 300 members now, which is
really?
great to see. But yeah, I think your group's growing as well. It was only started a couple of days ago, wasn't it? It'd be
Yeah.
great to see how it progresses.
Yeah, and it just be like, it shouldn't be like to replace this other group, right? Not at all. Because this other group, as I said, it has its place, because
Yeah, for sure, it has its
because
place.
yeah, sometimes you just want, if you don't have anyone to talk to, especially with this topic, sometimes you just want to voice your pain, right? But you just have to consider that when you voice your pain and the negative stuff that is going inside you, it can affect the people who you share it with, yeah, right? So that's why my group is more like another approach. It doesn't want to replace the other group, right? Yeah. Yeah. And just should we just end it here, or
Yeah,
do you have any last words?
I guess, thank you for everyone who has, chosen to listen. I think it's a good step to take, listening to us and really taking your health seriously, your mental health seriously. It's, hopefully we'll have some more podcasts out soon in which we can talk more about how to really start to feel better, how you can make change in your life. And I think it's positive, and I think there's a positive movement happening at the moment for retractive jealousy. I don't think it's as hopeless as it used to be. I think, Sam, you've brought about quite a lot of change in the community, actually, which is brilliant.
Oh, okay. That's nice to hear, yeah.
Yes, for sure. So, yeah, any last words?
No, I think we're good. Just let us know what you want to have discussed for the future podcast, and if you want to join the podcast, you let us know.
Yes, yeah. People are more than welcome to come on and have a chat, and we could even do a podcast where we actually have a sort of a counselling session, in terms of like what you would do for people, and yeah. Also, I guess if anyone wants to contact either me or Sam, feel free to send us a message on Facebook, and we can talk. And yes,
Yeah, that's good for me.
cool.
All right.
Nice one. Cool. Right.